Hey, welcome to Integrative Preparedness. I'm Steve Smith. Happy New Year. Hope you all had a good New Year's. We had a great New Year's. Hopefully we're finally kind of settling down and getting into our post-holiday relaxation. Um, I wasn't going to make a uh, one today. I never make predictions, but Cynthia over at Roots, Rocks, and Feathers left a comment in my last video asking if I was going to make predictions, and my immediate thought was no. But then I got to thinking, and maybe I will. Just kind of a way to say a Happy New Year to you all, and we'll see what happens in the coming year. So I will make a few little, um, I'll offer a few thoughts. I do know one thing. I predict this because a prediction. What's a prediction? It's a guess, and some people are better than others, and it kind of depends on your sense and how much you know, how much you keep track of things, your sense of history, your understanding of different parts of the world, the economy, and politics, and all that. And sometimes you get it right, and sometimes you don't. I have something that I know that I'm going to get 100% on. Uh, I will never, I predict that I will never watch another John Wick movie. Have you all ever watched John Wick? Any of them? I guess there's a bunch of them now. I never had. I had seen a few minutes of one time, and I found it just silly beyond belief. But I was here today. I forget what I was. Oh yeah, I had computer problems as I always do, and that movie came on for some reason on the TV. And so while I was going through a lot of tedious things, I thought, well, maybe I should watch this. Uh, I'll have to say this: the sets are amazing, the locations are great. Most of the other players and the actors are well cast and well acted. Uh, Trying to watch Keanu Reeves act is painful. Uh, Although maybe not as painful as watching the fighting and the shooting scenes. So anyway, I'm sorry if I offended anybody who loves John Wick, but that's just the silliest thing I've ever seen in my life. So I hope you stayed with me through that. What's going to happen this coming year, 2022? Um, I remember when I was, I don't know, in my teens, and I thought about how far away the turn of the century was, and I was greatly disappointed to realize that when it turned from 1999 to 2000, I was going to be so old that I really probably wouldn't care about anything in life. And that was 22 years ago. Really puts things in perspective. 2022, things are going to change. Um, some things are going to get better, some things are going to get worse. What we do know is that we are in the midst of an economic upheaval. Now, that's more upheaval for some than others. For some who have positioned themselves well, they're going to do all right. For those who have not, um, not so much. Some people could be in real trouble if they're not smart. But but even if you're not starting with much, if you can, kind of apply the basic principles of good conservative finance, you should do all right. But what's coming down the pike here? We see inflation. We see it hitting all over the place. That's going to be helpful for some people. Okay. It kind of depends on which boat you're in. Inflation helps some, hurts others. The Fed has already announced that they are going to, or they are considering, I forget whether they said they're going to or they're already planned or considering raising interest rates 3 times in 2022. Now, how much they'll do it each time, nobody knows. They probably don't even know right now, but they're wanting to do it in order to put on the brakes. What that's going to do is going to make it more difficult for financing. And most people need financing for some things in their life. And I know that the very very basics of you should never finance anything. You should pay for everything in cash. Well, it's good if you can. For those who are able, that's great. But most people can't buy a house with cash. Most people can't buy a car with cash. Most people need, credit for one thing or another. And for those who do, it's going to hurt them. Interest rates are going to go higher, which is really, a tax on a tax because it's meant to slow down inflation. And so it's going to hurt the people living on the edge. My advice for that is don't live on the edge. Never live on the edge of your money. We'll live well within your means and keep piling up, like I've always said, pile up cash. There's nothing wrong with using credit properly. Okay. Credit is good. Debt is bad. And there's a difference between the two. But properly used credit that results in manageable or even there is some debt that is actually good. And I won't get into that here. And for anybody out there going, no, debt is good. Yes, there is, but I'm not going to talk about that anymore right now. Politics. Politics is the big. Well, let me go back here. Let me put something in before that, and that's the big boogeyman that everybody's dealing with right now, with all the all the requirements for work and then people losing their jobs and all that. I think I'm in the final round with my previous corporate employer. We'll see what happens with that. I'll let you know. I just sent off my latest little thoughts to them. But we've seen a lot of pushback. We've seen a lot of pushback both on from individuals. We've seen it from companies. We've seen it from state and local governments. We've seen it from corporations. We just went down to a big concert a few days ago. For those of you who may have seen the video on it, down to Trans-Siberian Orchestra. Didn't need masks. Big arena, and nobody's, wearing. Well, there were some wearing masks, but it wasn't required. That's the thing. That's the issue. Some of these places have backed off, and they've backed off because of pushback. Okay, pushback works for those who say it's all over and we may as well just hide in a hole and wait for it all to collapse. No. That's not true. Pushbacks have worked in many cases, and now we're seeing more governors and more state legislatures, and even some at the federal level. Although the federal level, it's like turning an aircraft carrier; it doesn't turn quickly. But we are seeing that, and we're seeing a lot of the employers who had required various things in the past. They're having big trouble, big problems. They can't, some can't keep their doors open. Some can't find quality people to work for them. And so all of a sudden these people who, really ruined a lot of lives out there are starting to take it in the shorts. And it's going to be interesting to see. My prediction for that is that the fight is going to continue. We'll see what happens in the Supreme Court. We've seen the difference between the Fifth and the Sixth Circuit on this. And it's going to the Supreme Court, so we will see what they will do. And as we know with Chief Justice Roberts, there's no way to know. He could write a whole new law that requires people to do everything in the world just like he did with Obamacare. And then that will, bring about a new need for a new pushback, right? We'll see what happens with that. Anyway, as far as a prediction, I see this continuing to go through the summertime. I think that it will start to abate sometime in the spring. I think that the pressures on a lot of these places will just be too much for them to withstand long term. And I think as we see this latest variation kind of not proving to be the horrendous threat that everybody wanted to portray it to be, we will see what happens. Politics. After the first of the year, that's the next big political season. Everybody now is thinking about the off-year elections, 2022. Every House seat is up. A third of the Senate is up. We've already heard a lot of Democrats. Now, we would assume anyway that pretty much the first off-year election, the incumbent president's party loses a bunch of seats. Okay, now in the last 20 years or so, the Republicans have not lost nearly as many as is normal, and the Democrats have lost a lot more. I think that's even going to be worse this time. I think that just because of the disastrous, I won't call it leadership, the disaster in chief, I will say that, the disaster in chief has made it almost impossible for anyone not to see the destruction that he's brought on this country and his little minions or his handlers or his, whatever you want to call it. Even those many of who were, marginally supportive of that party some time ago are, they're running for cover. They see the negatives of the policies. Our country has gone from, a lot of strengths a few years ago. Energy independence. Look what's happened with gas prices. Look what's happened with food prices, with medical, with all. So, it's a different world now than it was just a few short years ago, and people are feeling it. And there's an old saying that people vote on kitchen table issues, and that means how is it affecting them? How's it affecting their pocketbooks? How's it affecting their jobs? How's it affecting their their bank account when they go to the store or gas up their vehicle? So more people are I think it's going to be a bloodbath for the Democrats. I think the Republicans are just going to take it over. I think they're going to get back the Senate, probably with a few extra seats. I think they're going to I predict, nobody knows. I predict they'll take back the House in a big way. And because of this, a couple of things. A lot of Democrats have already announced their retirement because they don't want to be in the minority. Okay. And, but because of what they are afraid of, what they know to be true, and that is the coming bloodbath in the off-year elections, I would see the Democrat Party pull out all the stops and try to, if what we saw in the last election was any indication, I think we're just going to see more and more dirty tricks in this one. And so it's important for those who are involved politically to be even more involved politically. It's important for those of you who have kind of, gotten away from it and aren't involved politically and have thrown up your hands and say it doesn't do any good. It does. Everything is politics. The other side won politically. And for you to say that the other side can do it, but you can't, I don't understand that kind of thinking. And so I would encourage you, come back into the fight. Hiding out there is not being part of the fight. And as things turn back around, it'd be nice to have you in the fight. The world's going to go on being the mess that it's always been. The world has always been a mess. This is going to kind of go on into what I'm going to talk about tomorrow. If I have a chance, I have a lot of things to do tomorrow. So my intention is to make one tomorrow on this. If I get around to it, great. If I don't, I'll make it Tuesday. But the world is a mess. It's always been a mess. It's always going to be a mess. We always know a little bit about the mess and what's causing the mess. But we know what they want us to know, and that's important to understand. To think that we understand a lot beneath the surface, we're kidding ourselves. And so to get all wrapped up, too wrapped up in what's going on in the world, and all fretful and tying yourself to the news, First off, it's not going to do any good. Secondly, it's just going to drive you crazy. Now, you should watch enough. You should keep in touch with what's going on in the world enough for this, so that you kind of know what to do to prepare to keep you and yours safe and sound. It's as simple as that. You have no control over anything that's going on in the world except the control that you exert over your local political hacks, okay? And that's why it's important to be active politically. Local. All politics is local, they say. The one thing that a politician is afraid of is not being reelected, because then he has to come back and do a real job again. None of them want to do that. So if you pay attention, if you get involved and you hold these people's feet to the fire, you will get more of what you want than if you just kind of lay back. But back to the world. The world is going to be the mess. It's always going to be. The world that those people behind the scenes live in is entirely different from the world you and I live in. It doesn't matter to me. I couldn't care less. I don't want to live in the world that they live in. Would I be happy if I lived in it? I don't know, probably, but I'm happy now. Okay? So I couldn't be any happier than I am, and that is because of my life and my family and my friends and the good people out there who I know are out there. And I think those are the things that it's important to concentrate on. So those are the biggies. This year I predict more of the same, but more of it, and more intensity in all of those things. We're going to have some wins. We're going to have some losses. But the important thing is to stay in the fight, not give up because we lost, and not get too sure of ourselves because we win one, but to stay going, because that's really what life is about. It's about showing up every day, doing your best every day, and having the most effect you can have, for the things that you believe in. So that's my first ever predictions for any kind of year 2022. Let me know what you think down here. Tell me what your thoughts are for 2022. And here again, if this is the first one that anybody has come and watched for a while, I always claim to have the smartest commenters in YouTube land. And if you read some comments, especially after, probably it'll take a couple of weeks before we get into the new year, before people really start coming back and commenting a lot. But you'll see that I'm right in that. Now, I do caution, if you're kind of new here, be nice, be polite. So it's just, for instance, like I said, what are your thoughts on what's coming up in 2022? A good thought, what are your thoughts? I want to hear them. Everybody wants to hear them. What I don't want to hear is the one that says, if you think that politics is, you're crazy. Okay. That's just whining. That's just complaining. Nobody's interested in hearing that. But other than that, jump in and let everybody know how you're heading into this new year. We hope it's a good one. We hope it's a great one. I hope you have a great one. And, leave last year behind and start something new with the knowledge and the background and the new wisdom that you've gained over the last one. So I'll let you go with that. Remember that we prepare well today in order to live well tomorrow. And I'm not necessarily going to prepare anything right now. I'm going to go watch a movie and prepare for tomorrow by getting a good night's sleep. You all have a good night. I will talk to you later. Bye-bye.